Welcome to Guided by Third Wheel, the podcast. My name is Amber Ireland, and I'm here with my co-host, Jill Bucaro. Let's get started.
Hey everybody, welcome back to Guided by Third Wheel. This is our first official podcast of 2024, which is pretty exciting. And Amber and I decided that we wanted to talk about beginnings and endings today. We're starting a new year. That's a new beginning in and of itself. I imagine some of us have put some things to bed in 2023 that we're excited about, maybe sad about, but it seems like a good time to talk about beginnings and endings. We've talked about in earlier episodes kind of this dealing with the idea of should I stay or should I go in a tough or hard situation. We've talked about being handed opportunities for endings that we weren't necessarily expecting, maybe a relationship ending, leaving a job unexpectedly, something big changing in our personal lives, and how do we navigate that? So our thought was we'll just maybe share a couple of our experiences with that and how we've kind of learned by error, trial and error, as always, how to navigate those. So I think when we were talking about it, Amber, we said there's sometimes we have endings and beginnings that are given to us, right? Unexpectedly.
Yep.
That we weren't thinking would happen, right? An unexpected breakup, a job offer that seems to like fall from the sky, a relationship that seems to fall from the sky, a new friendship, a new person in our lives.
Right.
And sometimes we have situations where we're just kind of like sitting and maybe our inner knowing is like, is this really what's best for you?
Right.
Is this really what you need?
I think we should start with the things that are handed to us, right? Because I think sometimes, especially early on in our lives as we're, kind of learning to navigate the ups and downs as adults, those things are given to us more often than we are choosing them because we just don't have like the confidence or the life experience,
the awareness,
right, to be like, this needs to end, or I need to move, I'm outgrowing this situation and it's time for me to change, because it feels more comfy to like sit in your own stuff that you're used to, right, than to go into that place of change. So I think, maybe starting there would be good, because I think the other side to that coin, where you actually are making those choices, comes a little bit later, when you have more experience seeing things being handed to you that maybe you didn't want.
Yes, I agree. Because I think, at least for me, and maybe there's some like wise, thoughtful people out here that caught on to this faster than I did. But I think for me, for a long time, like I would always choose like familiarity, like the devil I knew, as opposed to the potential for something better. Like maybe I'm not super happy. Maybe I'm not feeling super fulfilled or super seen, but having to like quote unquote start over or go out and look for a new job or a new partner or ending, this relationship that feels like a real comfortable, C minus, that feels, I just sitting and kind of being there feels a lot better to me than looking for something new. Yeah. And I think that's like one leveling up, is like understanding, okay, familiar doesn't always equal what's best for me.
Right. And I think too, I even think about it in the sense of routine, right? Because, we look at beginnings and endings, that can be something big, like a relationship, or like the beginning and ending of a year or a month. It could also be the beginning and ending of a day.
Sure.
Right?
Yeah.
And every day we have an opportunity to choose to do things differently. Like we have an opportunity to have a new beginning. And, we talk about that a lot in therapy, in 12-step, every day is a new day. Like we get to make new choices every day. Even changing routine, right? Like having the opportunity to change a routine or change a habit, or say like today I am going, I'm going to choose to exercise at a different time, or I'm going to choose to rest today when I didn't rest yesterday. Those can be beginnings and endings of things that are uncomfortable because they're new.
Well, and I think even now I'm like really thinking while you said that, like I do think I can look back in the last couple of years at times where I have made a conscious or kind of there's something that has happened that has shaken up a routine, which has really shaken up my life, often in a good way. Like one thing I'm thinking about, at least for me, are like vacations, right? Like when I take a lot of time off work, I always come back like fresher, brighter, smarter, and I feel like that usually marks the beginning for me of like a nice couple of months of like thriving in my life. I think about when I did the 75 hard challenge this fall, and I really like just in a very like mindful and intentional way shook up my routine, and that was like a wonderfully like happy couple of months for me. So I do wonder, like you said, if there is that like familiarity, if sometimes familiarity can be like our enemy, right? Or in not making the changes that potentially we should be making.
Right. And even those daily routines can turn into things that are changed by other people, right? Because if you let's say there's a major change in your life, like somebody, you're in a relationship with someone, you live with them and they leave, right? So not only are you having the ending given to you for a relationship and the opportunity for growth there, but you're having a lot of things taken, that where you are having to end, like the way that I do things every day, when I get up in the morning, what happens at dinner, like, all of those types of things, and your routine gets kind of out of whack. And so, thinking about that and being mindful of, how can we grow from that? How can we take those daily things that change for us and look at them as that opportunity for growth in that transition period?
Yeah, absolutely. Just thinking about, and I think that's like the big thing too, is we talked about at the beginning, like how often when we're younger, and still now, we get these really unexpected endings handed to us that like in the moment, it's like, I cannot believe this is happening. But then when you put on your like hindsight glasses, right? And you're like, oh, clearly the writing has been on the wall for quite a while, and I think over time, like I remember the first time I got those endings handed to me, and I'm like, surely the world will stop spinning. I will never, the world has ended as we know it, and I will never be able to go on. But you have that happen a couple times, and then you start to remember and recognize, like, oh man, this is a disappointment. This was an ending I didn't see coming, but low key maybe I did see it coming. And I think you get better at like embracing those opportunities, right? And I know for me, like, yeah, it's like, okay, like, do I necessarily want to do this again? No, but life experience has taught me when I'm handed an ending, I can capitalize on that. I can use it as like a launch pad for growth, right? Or I can, sit and wallow and be sad forever, and
repeat it.
And repeat it, yes.
Right.
And I think that's one thing I think a lot about, because sometimes I think I've had in my life, at least, endings that feel similar to other endings in the past, like relationships that have ended the same way previous relationships have ended. Work patterns getting toxic in the way that previous work patterns got toxic. Annoyance with friends in a way that I felt annoyed with friends 2 and 3 years ago, you know, and I think I've gotten better at realizing, like, perhaps this is a reflection of me, and not necessarily the person, but it's still hard, right? And then I feel like that the awareness is good, but the awareness to me also brings like frustration, like, why am I still here?
Right. Right. Well, and a lot of times it's because when we go from an ending to a new beginning, and we always go to a new beginning from an ending. Like, there is always a change and something new starts when you end something. You have that little transition period there before the new beginning is actually like upon you, right? And you're like, okay, here I go. And you have this transition period where you get to kind of reflect, like, why did this ending happen, right? And maybe you chose it. Maybe you were the one that said, like, this ends and I'm excited about this new thing, right? Or it was handed to you, right? So reflecting on that. And then during that transition period, you also have the opportunity to grieve that. Right? Because, let's be real, like, we do need to grieve that. We need to be like, that's really sad. It really sucks. And also I get to move forward. Both things can be true.
Right. And I think sometimes we want to be so focused on the moving forward that we don't take the time to grieve. And we have to understand that really is a parallel process, right? That you have to take the time to grieve and to own, like, wow, this really hurts, right? And that, like, requires some honesty, that requires some vulnerability, that requires you to, like, take off your armor and be like, I was attached, you know, to this person. I was attached to this outcome. I was attached to this, you know, status I had with this, whatever it is.
Yep.
You have to take the time to grieve that, or else you never truly will move forward. And maybe that's, I think, one way that you can get stuck in, why am I having all of these similar endings over the last decade of my life, over the last couple decades of my life?
And I think a lot of times it does come down to that attachment, right? Because everything that we do, every routine that we're in, you know, our jobs, our relationships, our daily habits, all of that, we can develop attachments to them that we determine make that worthy. Right. Or make ourselves worthy to be in that relationship or in that, doing that thing, right? And so we have those attachments. And so when they end, and I say when, not if, because nothing is forever. Like
Literally nothing.
You know, if you can get out of the mindset of saying like, oh, I met my forever person, right? Now, some people do, they stay together forever. But when you talk to those people, you know that their relationships have changed dramatically over the course of that relationship, right? Like there have been cycles, there have been phases of that. There have been endings and beginnings within those relationships. So nothing stays the same. So we just have to kind of get out of the mindset that like, I found my perfect job, right?
Right.
And it will be this way forever, and it will be fine, you know, and I will just be here, right? Because, you know, hopefully one day you retire. I mean, at the very least, you retire, right? Or maybe you get promoted or something like that. So there's going to be those changes. But we have to make sure that we grieve those attachments that we have when the changes come. Because when we can grieve those and say like, oh, this really hurts so bad because I was attached to this being my identity. I was attached to this being part of my worth.
Yeah.
When we can learn those lessons, when we can sit in that space, that propels us forward to a new beginning where we don't develop those attachments the same way.
Right. And I think part of that is just like, to your point, reminding yourself from the outset and throughout, like, nothing is forever, right? Don't get too attached. Two thoughts I have on that. One, my therapist has said to me, and she has kind of like some Buddhist, I feel like kind of like ideologies and thoughts. And she talks about, I forget, some philosopher guy, some smart Buddhist man, who used to say to people, like, he would meet with somebody and they would say like, this is just, you know, this has been the worst day ever. Or like, I can't believe I'm stuck in this horrible relationship, or you'll never believe what happened at work today. And he'd be like, don't get too attached, like this will pass, you know? Right. And then somebody would come to him and be like, I've never been so happy, like I didn't know, you know what I mean, that I could ever feel this good. And he'd be like, don't get too attached, like this too will pass. And so I think we have to always remember that, right? And I think the reason, and this is my second point, is I think the reason we have so much trouble with that is because we are like fed this false narrative of like happily ever after. Yeah. How do books end? How do movies end? How do Disney stories end? How does, you know, sitcoms and rom-coms and everything ends with like this happy ever after moment.
This
right?
high point, yeah.
It's like you know, destination happiness, right? Like you hit it, you made it, but nobody ever talks about what happens after the happily ever after. Yeah. That really happily ever after happens 14, 15, 18 times in a lifespan, right? And
how beautiful is that?
And that's
that
even
you get
cooler.
It, yeah, that you get it a million, you know, you get it a bunch of times if you're willing to look at it and see it.
Right. And I think you have this problem with people that are forever striving to their happily ever after. Yeah. They're like, I haven't hit destination happiness. I haven't hit destination happiness. And then I think you have a group of people who are like, I hit what I thought was destination happiness, like in my early 20s, right? Like
now I've peaked.
I found my quote unquote forever person. I had my however many kids I did or didn't want to have, you know, I bought the house that I really thought we wanted. And now I'm 28 and things are falling apart at work, or my relationship just got hard, or raising kids just got hard, or, you know, we had this financial blow we weren't expecting. And like, what the fuck? Like, I'm in my happily ever after. Why is this happening? And I think it's just, you know, when I get so irritated sometimes because I always say, like, nobody ever told us life was going to be this way. Like, why the fuck did people tell us forever that there was a happily ever after?
Yeah. But, you know, the thing about it is the happily ever after is the middle path. It is the times when the highs aren't so high and the lows aren't so low.
Yes.
That's the happily ever after.
That's it. That's where you want to be, is when you, like, feel that alignment, you're in your groove, and you're
but it's hard
it.
because, you know, because we are fed that. Our culture does tell us that everything should be exciting. We should be doing something exciting every day. I mean, you go on your social media and people are posting all of these, like, I'm doing all these exciting things, these vacations, these, like, you know, crazy treks up mountains, and, you know, you see all of this and you're like, but, you know, most of my days are pretty mundane.
Right.
And so what's wrong with me?
Right. Why am I not, like, feeling this happiness that other people are portraying, right? Or are showing to us?
Yeah.
No, I think that is really true, is that especially in this day and age, it's really easy to feel inadequate because we're comparing ourselves, one, to a narrative that isn't true, and two, to, like, the lives or the portrayal of lives or the perception of lives that isn't true either.
Yeah. And when we talked about, you know, the thought that, like, this too shall pass, when something bad is happening, when you're sad, like, it's nice to hear someone say this too shall pass, right? Because it's not a place you want to be in, right? But when something great is happening and somebody says to you, this too shall pass, it's kind of like, you know what, fuck you. Like, no, I don't want this to pass. You know what I mean? And that's a hard lesson to learn, that you can be in that moment and be in that just elated joy, and also know that I'm not going to be in this forever, so let me just savor it right now. Let me learn from it what I need to learn from it, and know that though I'm not going to be at this level, I'm still going to be at peace.
Yes. Yeah. No, I mean, I think that's really the lesson. And I think you learn that part of that just comes with age, right? So this is again, and I've said this in another podcast, I need to get up off my high horse of, like, why did no one ever tell me life was going to be this way? Because maybe had someone tried to tell me, I wouldn't have been able to get it right at that time.
And it's a hard concept. I mean, it's a hard concept to really, like, internalize, and without a lot of life experience, it's hard.
I think so. I think it's hard to without the experience, for sure. But yeah, after you've had, you know, you've had your endings handed to you. You've had a couple rock bottoms or close to rock bottoms, right? Yeah. And you've had a couple, you know, or a lot of, you know, if you're lucky, like how I am, you've gotten to have a lot of moments of just, like, pure, like, joy, contentment, excitement. You understand, that those really begin to, like, stitch together, like, this overall fabric of a beautiful life, right? And I think that's one thing too that I encourage, you know, the people around me or the people I work with to say, hey, like, zoom out. You know what I mean? Like, this is just a moment in time, especially when you're feeling really low or something happened that you didn't want. Like, zoom out and remember you're not going to feel like this forever. Right. You know, but also zoom out to remember, like, you know, the world is not all dark and crazy, but also zoom back in to say, what am I going to do with this opportunity that's been handed to me?
Right. What am I going to learn for this? How am I going to share this with other people? You know, how am I going to use this to move myself forward in the way that I want to? And I like how you say, like, you know, all of these different things, the lows, the highs, are all part of the same. They're all part of who you are. They make up who you are. Right. And to be able to honor both of those, you know, the very low lows and the high highs and everything that lies in the middle, really lends to honoring yourself and your own journey, and being able to see that, like, if I didn't have that low, right? If I never had that experience and had to move through it and had to have that learning, could I have had some of these high highs? Could I be on this middle path where I can have this peace? Probably not, because and that's what we talk about, just as far as, like, people that are younger and don't have as much life experience. It's harder. Right? Yes. We have to start gaining some of that. And unfortunately, some of it comes with some low lows and some high highs. But then again, I meet people that are much younger than me, and I'm like, you just came in with like this old soul. Like
some people come in with the knowledge. Yes.
I wish that would have been
Not
me.
me.
I feel like I came in and they were like, we are like wiping this slate extra clean when you come in.
Because you know literally nothing.
Like, good luck. And we're not going to give you a whole lot of people to model what, how to handle these things.
Truly. No, I do think about that. And I do think there are some of us, I think there are some personality types and people that really love to chase the high highs.
Yes.
And I am one of those people.
I would say, yeah, I love a high. Like, I want to, like, it's fun to live there.
Oh my God, just that euphoric. And
Yeah.
I don't even, and I'm also someone that I don't mind a low either. Like, getting deep and dark and wallowing, that's a comfortable space for me too. I think I'm very comfortable in the high. I think I'm more comfortable than I'd like to admit in a low. But I think where I struggle, and I think what my lesson has been these last couple years is to how to find contentment in and gratitude for the middle path.
Yeah.
Like, I had a nice day. I had nice interaction with my people, because I'm a big striver. Like, I always want more. I want more. I want more. Because I think I want to feel the high. Like, I want to be high.
Yeah.
But I have a hard time with being grateful for that middle path. But I think that middle path is where the contentment lives.
And that's like kind of the place where I think a lot of people would call that boredom. They're like, I'm just bored.
Yes.
Like, things are just going and I'm just bored, right?
Yes.
And really looking at that when you're feeling bored, like, am I bored or am I just looking for an extreme?
Right. Am I just, yes. And I think, and that's where
and you might be bored. I mean, I don't know. Maybe that is a thing. Like that I know I get bored sometimes and I'm like, I got to switch what I'm doing or whatever. But
are you numbing yourself out to the point that you have to have a high or a low to feel something? I think for a long time that was me. I think I was just like a numbing fucking machine, right? And that it had to either be really good or really bad for me to check back in to my life. When you peel back that numbing and you replace it with like awareness and intentionality and connection and all of those things, and you don't even necessarily want the high highs and the low lows anymore, right? You want just like, just like the little nice snuggles of emotion that come in like a normal day. But I think that to me has been like a huge piece of the learning. And I think I really like precipitated or like caused a lot of my own endings trying to feel something. Yeah. You know what I mean? Yeah. Trying to make something more dramatic. You know what I mean?
Right.
Because I was just like unwilling to like, I don't know, articulate needs, have hard conversations in that middle path, that I did something dramatic instead, Yeah. And so I think that we have to think about that too.
Yeah. And I think for some of us, that was modeled for us, right? Like, nobody had a hard conversation unless it was dramatic.
Yes.
I know growing up, like, hard conversations were not had in calm places.
Right. I think probably for many of us that was the case. Yeah. That we did not see hard conversations modeled unless they were just like absolute like throwdowns, crying, yelling, silent treatment, all of that kind of stuff. That's so true.
Yeah. Yeah. When we think about the high highs and the low lows, right, we're swinging, right? So it's like, when I hit that high, like, I'm going to have to swing back.
You have to come down. What goes up must come down.
And I'm not going to swing back to the middle path. I'm gonna like sail right on by it, wave, and head over the other side, right? And so, just remembering that like when we have those emotions that are, hitting all the way to one end or the other of the spectrum, the same way that like beginnings and endings work, you're gonna swing back. Like you're gonna go to the other, to the other side when it's over.
And it makes me wonder if the goal with many endings or beginnings is to try to like do things or get to the place where you're not swinging all the way back over, but you're just kind of settling in to that more calm and content place, for sure. Right. And I think there's some people that I think whether it's like temperament, personality, what they were exposed to, right? I think some people are just are better at the middle place than other people are.
Yeah.
I don't know if it's maturity. I don't know what it is.
Yeah.
But I do think that there's some people that are better, and I would like to hope that I'm getting better at it. But I think for me, for a long time, that's been a tough thing, which I think has allowed me to have a lot of endings and beginnings, you know, and opportunities for growth, right? A lot of AFCOs, another fucking growth opportunity. Yeah. I love another fucking growth I got a couple more the last couple weeks. I was happy about them, you know, another fucking growth opportunity. But the other goal of that, and the other thing we wanted to talk about today, is hopefully after swinging from the highs and the lows and having your beginnings and endings, I think the goal is that we start to get better at seeing the writing on the wall.
Yes.
Seeing the endings when they're perhaps coming towards us. Seeing the opportunities for beginnings that maybe we were swinging too high and low to even notice those opportunities before. And I think we need to talk about that too, because I run into a lot of people in my life and my job that are starting to feel some of that discomfort, right? That are like, you know, my life isn't on fire, but I'm looking around and I don't know if I'm happy working where I'm at. I don't know if I'm happy in this relationship. I don't know if this is, you know, this routine is the best for my family, right? I don't know if this is the career path in general that I want to be on. And there's more like, instead of these like tower moments or fires, there's more just like these little inklings of, should I stay or should I go? Should I try something new or different? And I wonder if we want to talk about some of our just like words of advice or our experience on how to make that determination if a change is needed.
Yeah. First thing that I would say is start paying attention when you have those feelings. Like, you know, I think a lot of times we will have those feelings and then we will be dismissive of those feelings. Like, oh, you're just being crazy. Like, look, you know, we get out of our heart and we get back into like our thinking brain that tells us like, look around you. Everything is perfect. Like, we created all this perfection for you. Why the hell are you? There's something wrong with you. Right? Where our brain tells us
if you're unhappy, there's something wrong with you.
There's something wrong with you. Right? And those are those old stories, right? Your brain's telling you what it needs to tell you in order for it to create perceived safety for you based on old stories that have been programmed into you your entire life. Like, in a story, that is what your brain is trying to do, which is wonderful that your brain does that because, you know, your brain keeps you from, like, walking out in front of buses and, you know, and doing things like that because it wants to keep you safe. But our heart, on the other hand, will start to have those feelings where it's like, oh, this just doesn't feel aligned anymore. It doesn't feel as satisfying anymore. Listen to that and spend time sitting with that feeling. You may find that this doesn't feel in alignment because maybe I need to change my perspective. You may find out that it's something that you can make that ending and beginning of perception within yourself, or you may find that it actually is something that you have to do externally and create an ending or a beginning. But when we don't listen, it gets a little louder, it gets a little louder, it gets a little louder, you start getting the rocks thrown at you, and all the while you're like, I don't see that, I don't hear that, please, none of that, and then all of a sudden, it's gone. And you didn't have a choice.
The universe took it from you anyway.
Right.
The universe picked you up and set you on a different path. Whether they left you or something happened or whatever.
Yep. And then at that point, the universe, your guides, your heart is all like, learn the lesson, please reflect, because we don't want to do this again.
Right.
And then sometimes we don't.
Sometimes we don't learn the lesson and we do it again.
And we do it again.
And I do. And I think that's, I love how you depicted that with like your head versus your heart. Because I think our head is just filled exactly like with what you said of all these old stories, and this is what you should be doing, and this is what a successful life looks like, and this is what happiness looks like, and this is what you as a 34-year-old woman or a 25-year-old man or a 42-year-old woman should be doing.
Right.
And your head's like, no. Like everybody else, shut the fuck up, right? Like all those other voices like, this is what's right.
Right.
And because of that, like, you shove everything else down and you don't sit in that discomfort and you don't really listen. But to your point, like, it's like, once you know, like, you can't unknow it.
Yeah.
And either you're going to do something about it or the universe is going to do something about it in a really dramatic way.
Yeah. And I think too, I mean, you know, we talk about the brain and the heart and, you know, like how those things work together, and, you know, we all have both. And sometimes we can think about that as like masculine and feminine energy. I mean, there's a lot of ways to look at it, you know, the duality of the two, but there's nothing wrong with the fact that your brain is telling you these things. Your brain is trying to create safety. And so, you know, and if you don't pacify that, if you don't say like, hey, I honor you trying to keep me safe. And also, I don't really need that right now.
Right.
You know, if you don't sit in those feelings and really honor the fact that like, oh, I made a lot of these choices because I thought that this was what I needed to do, because I was scared, because I was feeling shameful. If you never sit in that and kind of honor what your mind was doing for you at times that you needed to be kept safe, it's going to be really hard to listen to what your heart is saying, because your mind is going to get louder. It's going to be like, hello, like, I'm still trying to keep you safe over here.
Right.
Like, why won't you acknowledge me?
Right.
You know, and that's a hard thing to do, but we have to remember that we have both at the same time. We have our mind, you know, telling us things, and we have our heart telling us things. And we have to sit with both of those things.
Yeah. No, and I think that's hard. And that was going to be my question to you, because I think the thing, you know, that I struggle with still, and I get mad at myself, right? You know, I get in the shame spiral every time, is that I'm like, I am going to stay present. I'm going to stay engaged. I'm going to listen to my heart, right? I'm going to check in when things feel uncomfortable. Like, I'm not going to go on autopilot. I'm not going to like eyes glaze over and become a Stepford wife. Like, I'm going to stay, I'm going to be me. I'm going to be Jill, and I'm going to be engaged. And then I still find myself not doing that, right?
Yeah.
Of jumping out, of going on autopilot, of like, knowing in my heart that something is wrong and my head is saying, no, it's right. And I'm like, I cannot reconcile this. So I am like going dead inside. Right. And I wonder if what you're saying, like, if a good tip for that, right, is to stop, instead of being like brain shut up or heart shut up, to say like, you both play a really integral part.
Right.
Of me, of keeping me safe, of being who I am. Right. And let me honor both of those. And then perhaps it'll be a little easier to reconcile and sort through some of that stuff.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's something that is helpful for me when I'm getting a lot of that like brain feedback, where it's like, do this, you know, and I know in my heart, like, that's not, it doesn't feel right, is that I look at it from like, okay, if I did this, how would it be keeping me safe? How would it be keeping 5-year-old Amber safe? How would this have kept 12-year-old Amber safe?
Yes.
Because a lot of times that's what my brain is doing. It's like, we've seen something like this before, and, you know, I don't want you to get hurt, so let's, you know, shut down and put up the walls, right?
Yes.
And so when I can see it for what it is, and I can honor it and say like, oh, I get it.
That's where this is coming from.
Yeah.
That's where this almost like, and we've talked about this before too, is like when something starts to feel like compulsive, that is sometimes a clue that perhaps what you're compulsively doing is not serving you, right? When it feels like I have to do this, or like I cannot breathe, right? Then what is that, right? And take the moment to unpack that. Yeah. I know another thing for me that I notice for me personally, like when my heart and my head are not aligned, or where I'm like ignoring something my heart is telling me, I often get physically sick. Yep. Like for a very long time. Which I have like a horrendous immune system anyways, and there's like lots of reasons for that are like of my own making. I know for me, like when things start to fall apart for me, I always get so ill for just so long. And so that's always like a really good clue for me. And then I think to your point, like the voices get louder, the craziness gets crazier, right? And you find yourself like on a very fast one-way train ride to a tower moment. But yeah, I think that's another one for me, is I start to clue in more quickly, where I'm like, okay, Jill, you've had a cold that hasn't gone away for a month. Like, let's see what's really going on here, right? Is it just that you're sick, or is there something else happening here?
Right. And we think about that, and sometimes that's our body keeping us safe, right? If you're sick, then now you have to rest more. Like, and we, you know, we can think about that too for people who don't rest when they're sick, right? And they just keep pushing through. And then eventually, like, you get to that, you know, you don't feel good. And then, like, on day 5, you just kind of like crash out, you know, and that's your body being like, we told you, we told you, we told you, here's your tower.
Right. You're done. Yeah.
Yeah. Lay down, you know, sit your ass down.
You literally cannot get up.
Yeah.
And I think we have to listen to our bodies and listen to our hearts, because I think those two pieces of us are very, very intertwined.
Yeah. And sometimes what it is when we don't, you know, especially like that pushing, like I'm going to keep doing, we're avoiding feeling the feelings.
Yeah.
Right? Like, because when I stop and sit, I have to recognize the feelings. When I'm not doing something, like, the feelings start bubbling up, and I have to sit in them. And sometimes that's that numbing of, you know, the overactivity, the things that aren't necessary. When our body and our heart are telling us, like, please just sit in this for a minute. Please just sit in this and learn something for a minute.
Not interested. Thank you. Yeah, I think the grinding is a form of numbing for sure.
Yeah.
And you stay busier. Yeah.
Yeah, I've had a lot of, in this healing process from my surgery, I've just had, you know, as much as I thought it was going to just be physical, right? Like, you know, you have surgery, you do all the physical things, you know, you rest and you take the medicines and you do the stuff and it'll be fine. Having to sit and be still and truly, like, being so tired that was all I could do. Oh my God. I mean, it like stripped away everything. It was like a tower moment that I created for myself. Like, I mean, truly, because everything that was, and it was like these beginnings and endings for me that I'm still working through the transition of, right? Because I know that it's temporary, and also some of it I don't want to be temporary. Some of it I'm like, you know what? No, this learning is better for me moving forward. Like, learning how to take this rest and really, like, being in it and honoring my body and not pushing and not, like, deprive, because, you know, I mean, like, when you sit on your ass for 4 weeks, you know, that's a lot.
That sounds like my worst nightmare. I'm, like, getting anxious just thinking about it.
Right. You sit on your ass for 4 weeks, you lose muscle tone, you, like, all of these body things happen, right? I can't, you know, like, I can't wear anything but stretchy pants because otherwise they, like, sit on my scars and they hurt, right? So there's, like, all of these things that I can't do. And so now moving forward, I'm like, well, you know, this is temporary. And yes, of course, I can get back to doing activity. But I'm like, do I really want to push as hard as I was pushing before? Is that really necessary?
Right.
Because I'm still okay.
Yeah. Nothing in
sitting
your life
on my
is
ass
falling apart.
for 4 weeks. I'm okay. And I feel okay. And I've been able to sit with this. And I'm not unhealthy. And I'm not, you know, and I didn't gain 300 pounds. You know, I mean, like, in my mind, my head tells me things like, well, you sat here for 4 weeks. I'm sure you've gained, like, you know, 100 pounds, and which is ridiculous.
Which is crazy. Or, like, you sat here for 4 weeks, like, they've realized at your job that they don't need you, right? And they're going to move on without you, right? Or, like, you've sat here for 4 weeks and, like, you know, your partner and your friends think you're a lazy piece of shit and, like, want nothing to do with you, right? And it's like, oh, no, wow, it's all still here.
Yeah.
And I think, we have to think about that. I'll say a lot now. I just had, like, this realization while you were talking. I always say, like, I hate to get sick because I feel like being sick always affects my mood, right? Like, I always get sick and then I have, like, a little bout of depression afterwards. But I wonder if what is really happening, right, is that the grind numbing has stopped long enough for me to feel a feeling.
Right.
You know? Jesus.
Yeah. And it's the attachment. I mean, it is the attachment to the outcome that is, you know, that gets in the way, and we have to grieve that attachment, you know, and say, like, I don't have to be attached to, like, an exercise routine where I'm lifting weights every single day and that's the person that I am.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like, that's not who I am. That's
Right.
just like a thing that I used to do.
Right. But it's not who I am. And
Right.
I think that is what's so scary for so many of us is when you peel all of that back, right? When you take the relationships away, when you take the status in society away, when you take the job away, when you take the habits away, when you take, you know, the person that I portray on Instagram and Facebook away, when you the cute clothes away, the hair, the nails. I remember like when COVID happened and I couldn't like do my nails and have my hair. Like when you take all of that away, that is who you really are. And I think most of us are just not interested in hanging out with that person.
No. And that's kind of the place that I've had to sit in is like, who am I?
Right.
I don't know this person.
Right.
I don't know this. I got to get to know this person, right? When those pieces are stripped away. And I think when we have these beginnings and endings, we have an opportunity to really like peel those away a little bit at a time, right? And sit with those little aspects of who we are deep down without the attachment to some type of an identity. You know, unfortunately, like, you know, I mean, this was not like a surgery that was like an emergency, like I chose to have it and all of the things, but it did create like just a across the board, like all these identities are gone. So who are you? Who are you? Who are you going to sit here and be like, are you going to sit in this? And for the most part, I feel like I've chosen to sit in it and try to figure it out and try to like get to know that part of myself because, you know, I don't want it to be all taken away.
Yeah. No, I know exactly what you mean. And I think, and I am not necessarily very good at that, but I do think like as I've done work, as I've had things taken from me that I thought I could never live without, right? As I've grown and changed and done things I never thought I would do, right? As I've gotten opportunities that I never thought I would have, I think I've gotten glimpses of who Jill is, right? Underneath all of that shit. And I think I'm getting better at now when we bring it back into the context of the should I stay or should I go? Or I'm feeling some discomfort, what comes next, right? Or a fiery tower moment has occurred and what do I do? I think I'm getting better at like making decisions for her. You know what I mean? Like let me embody that girl of who she really is, like away from everything else and think about what would really make her happy, what would help her feel safe, you know, and make decisions for that person.
Right.
Because I think, you know, beginnings and endings, like we said, you're kind of faced with a crossroads, right? There's several paths that you could take from there. And I think for a long time, I always wanted to take the path of like what would look the best, right? What make my parents happy? What might people expect that I would do given the version of Jill that I serve out to everybody every day, right? But I think, you know, perhaps like the true peace and that true middle path, that contentment we're talking about, comes from when you choose what would make that Jill peeled all the way down really happy.
Yeah. And just as you were talking, I was thinking, you know, a nice way to look at it is all of these experiences that we have in our life, all of these things I choose to do, like, you know, I chose to go to school and be a social worker, right? You know, I choose to work out every day. I choose to eat certain ways. I choose all these activities that I do are part of my soul's journey, but they are not my soul.
Yeah.
So I get, you know, that, and that means that I can choose differently whenever I want. Because it's not my identity. It's just part of the journey.
Yeah, and when there's an ending that I didn't want or that I wasn't expecting, it doesn't mean I lost a part of me.
No.
It just means the journey changed.
Right.
Because really, at the end of the day, to your point, nothing and no one is forever but you.
Right.
Like, you are your forever. Because at the end of the fucking day,
right,
it is just you.
Yep, absolutely.
And I think another reminder, you know, when we talk about all that self-care and stuff and all of that, like, if you are all you've got, when you peel it all back, why wouldn't you spend more time and attention and focus on you?
Right. Yeah.
Yeah. Damn. We went deep today, Amber.
Beginnings and endings.
Beginnings and endings.
Death and rebirth.
Whew.
Like, it's just, and it, like we said, it's, you know, it's a daily occurrence.
It's a daily occurrence, yes. I mean, literally down to our biology. Like, our
Right.
cells are dying and regrowing every single day in our body. And I think normalizing that experience that things will end and new things will begin forever.
Right.
Throughout the course of a year, throughout the course of your lifetime, throughout the course of a day, right? Like, things are beginning and ending every single time, and lose some of that hysteria around the beginnings and endings, and lose some of the attachment to the outcomes or the happily ever afters or whatever story you wrote out in your brain.
Yeah. And just see them as opportunities. This is an opportunity for me to connect more fully with myself.
Yes.
To see what's been going on, what I've been doing that maybe is outside of what's authentic to me, and connect more with myself and make choices for that person.
Yes, exactly. And I always tell myself too, I tell myself all the time that, like, there will be beginnings and endings always. And I believe, and I think it's been shown to me again and again, that one, the universe unfolds as it should, and two, that which is meant for you will not pass you by.
No, it won't. It won't pass you by, but also it won't be permanent.
And it also won't be permanent. But no amount of obsessing, manipulating, fixating, controlling, if it's not meant to be yours, no matter what you do, it will not be yours.
No.
And even if it's meant to be yours, it's only meant to be yours for a little while.
Yeah. Or it's only meant to be yours that way for a little while.
Right. And maybe it'll, yes, exactly.
Maybe it'll change. Maybe it'll, evolve into something else. Or maybe it will end.
Yeah. I remember one time my cousin asked me, we were talking about, I don't know, somebody or some situation, and she's like, well, what do you think, like, will happen? Like, in a couple years, like, what do you think it will be? I said, girl, like, the only thing I've learned in these this was a while ago, like 28, 29 years of life, is that whatever I think will happen, that's for sure not what it will be. I'm like, what I have learned is, like, nothing ever unfolds the way I think it will or should.
Yeah.
And, and we just gotta, like, buckle up, go on the journey, and be true to ourselves and honest with other people.
Yeah. And I think the further we get, the more that you practice being on the journey, the more you practice not being attached to outcomes, the more you practice these transitions between your beginnings and your endings, right? To learn from them, to grow from them. You get to a place where that middle path is kind of like sitting in flow with the universe, right? I know that I'm going in the right direction. Like, you can start to feel it. You're like, okay, I'm in the flow.
You feel like the alignment. Like, it's like, right. I feel like I've, like, hit the groove. You know what I mean? Like, I'm grooving. I'm flowing with the universe. Yes.
Yeah, things are happening. There's, like, you can feel just things start coming to you that you're like, oh, well, yeah, that's, of course, exactly what I needed, right? But also, they're coming to you, and you're grateful for them because you can see them now. Because they've always been coming to you. You just haven't been able to.
Your awareness is sharpened.
Right.
Or your awareness is focused on where it should be.
Yeah. And I always think of it as, like, I think of myself, like, in a boat. And I'm in like a little canoe or a kayak or something, right? And I'm on the river, right? And sometimes the river is really fast and sometimes it's slow and peaceful. But I can choose to put my paddle in the water and try to back up, turn, spin around, get out of the kayak, whatever.
Grab onto a branch as you go by.
And I can choose to resist, or I can put my feet in that kayak, pick up my paddle, lay back, and just go.
Yeah.
And sometimes it's that thought with me, like, am I being resistant to the flow of what is already happening? Where can I just pull my paddle back in and go with this and just allow?
Right. Surrender.
Right.
Yeah. I think that's like that's a beautiful analogy. And I think we should end on that. Because that is fire.
Yep.
Nobody steal that from me ever. You need to copyright that shit. That's some good stuff. That's good right there.
Pull in your paddle.
Pull that paddle in, lay back. Get some sun on your skin and surrender.
Yep.
Maybe that should be our word of 2024. Time to surrender.
Yeah.
That's good stuff. Do we want to pull a card?
Sure. What kind you want?
Oh, I don't know. What do you want to do? You think tarot? You think... I don't know. We did tarot last time.
We did do tarot last time. I've got these new self-care oracle cards.
Well, let's do a self-care oracle. I'll take as much self-care as I can get.
And these are real easy because it's just like literally what's written on the card.
Oh,
there is no book. There is nothing. I ordered these on Temu.
Oh, it's
So
like
I don't know. I mean, these, I enjoy them. I think they're nice. I don't know if you can actually buy these anywhere else. They might be a reproduction of something. They might be like a bootleg oracle card. I don't really know, but I enjoy them.
These are some bootlegs. Low rent oracle cards we're bringing to you. You know what? But
they work.
But we trust that the universe gives us what we need.
Yep.
And they're like, you need these weird cards.
Yep, here we are.
Let's
here
take
we are.
them.
All right, let's all, if you haven't already today, or you want to now, let's take a deep breath together. And release. All right, let's see what we get. And we'll put these cards. Oops, that's a lot of cards. We only want one card, please. We can only handle one thing today, universe.
There it is.
God, no,
Two?
select 3.
No.
We might end up with more than one because I think it feels like that is.
That's the vibe.
Well, we're gonna get 2.
All
We're
right.
gonna get 2.
Let's see.
We'll
They're like,
settle on
maybe
that.
people need 2 different messages.
All right, so the first one is declutter. And it says, let go of old items and create new sacred space for yourself. So, beginnings and endings that are more physical, right? So letting go of old things that you don't need anymore so that you can make space for new things that you may want, right? Declutter. And then just be. Allow yourself to be. You do not have to prove a damn thing. Confidence will flow into you when you are divinely you. So that's about being authentically yourself.
It's almost like just taking your oar up out of the water and just being.
Yep. Just be. You don't have to
be on the
prove a damn
journey.
thing to anyone. And that confidence will flow to you probably after you declutter and get rid of some shit that you don't need.
Yeah.
You can more readily just be and allow yourself to be yourself.
Perfect. Off we go. Thanks, guys.
Bye.
Thank you for listening to another episode of Guided by Third Wheel, the podcast. We would be honored if you would like, rate, and subscribe on your favorite podcast platform. Until next time, be well.